Okay, moving on from Muppet of the Month, let's take a look at this month's media or TV choices. Shall I go first this month?
Oh, go on then, yeah.
Okay, well, I earlier this month I was intrigued by something linked with Ötzi the Iceman, and what I might do is save that until next month. But I did mention this TV series on the RKSU Facebook page, so some people out there may have already sort of twigged that one. But actually, what I've come around to is the TV series on Netflix, The Crown. This is a TV series. It's apparently the most expensive television series yet commissioned by Netflix, and it's specifically about the life of the Queen, starting just before she ascended to the throne, with the illness and death of her father. And apparently the plan is to do 6 series, each series spanning 10 episodes, and essentially taking into account her entire reign. So, about every 2 series, apparently they'll change the actors, especially for example the one playing the Queen, in order to reflect her age in whatever decade that they're examining. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is not necessarily because I'm a, you know, rabid royalist or anything like that, but rather because actually both me and my lovely wife have very much appreciated the tone of what they're doing. It is slightly fictionalized. There are elements of this series which, when you actually look into it, it's not real. But supposedly the Queen herself has watched it and quite has approved of what they're doing, and I think the reason why if she has offered her approval, why she might have done that is because actually it's not even that it humanizes the royal family. What it does is there's a gritty, sort of there's a sense of it's a sense of struggle, as it were, which you often hear people talk about in a very convoluted, highfalutin way, how the Queen gives herself over to the service of her country. But actually, the way this drama explores some of this stuff is very interesting. And if you are a total Republican, at the very least, this is an example to an experience which is an opportunity to examine. I suppose what it is to be a monarch, and especially the British monarch, the relationship between power and government, the things that you can and cannot do, and how I suppose how that affects your personal relationships. It's a fascinating drama.
I'd agree with you actually. And I think it's really interesting that it's come out. It's being premiered now. I can't resist the fact. I can't resist suggesting that maybe they got the title wrong, and rather than calling it The Crown, they should have called it Game of Thrones. But,
Or
that's
just
clearly
the
kind
Queen, like the Queen, like you know
yeah.
who we're talking about.
I mean, yeah, it's a media trend, isn't it? So
Yeah.
the very high end, high production value, multi-series drama,
Mm,
continuing drama.
mm,
And I've not watched all the episodes yet. I've watched the first. It's a very impressive piece of work. It looks great. It's got people like Stephen Daldry, the director of The Reader, and Billy Elliot involved. Very, very good acting cast.
but also, just one thing I'd say that it does very well is it doesn't. It is a period piece by definition, but it doesn't revel in that period too much.
Yeah.
Whereas, for example, The King's Speech, the movie, at times you felt as though they were going, it's the 1940s. Did you know that? Or the 1930s. Did you know that? Look, here's an air raid, just to let you know, this kind of thing. They're not reveling in the details. What they're doing is this is life. They're just showing you someone's life.
And I think the success of when a series like that works, and particularly when it's well written and well acted, as well written and well acted as this one is,
Hmm.
what you get is the narratives and the characters have a chance to live and breathe and establish. You don't have to establish somebody's whole backstory in one scene.
No, no.
Um, uh, so I, and but I think the wider point I'd like to make on this one, I think it's very interesting that we're seeing The Crown coming out at a time when there have been celebrations for the Queen's 90th birthday last year, and so on. But there is also a sense of it's less fin de siècle than an end of an era, because at some point, we are facing up to the fact as a country, wherever you stand on the issue of the monarchy, that the Queen's reign will come to an end at some point, probably within the next 10-15 years. Who knows when. And we are asking all sorts of questions about the succession of what a 21st century monarchy in Britain look like. Who would even be that monarch? We've just seen the BBC produce a very fine adaptation of Mike Bartlett's Charles III, which was a play that was done at the Almeida Theatre in London, and then was adapted for television, which hypothesizes the accession of Prince Charles as Charles III, and then a constitutional crisis that sees him abdicate in favour of Prince William. And it's done as a pastiche Shakespearean tragedy.
Well, and actually, I think, and this is something which I very much appreciate about it, and the reason why I'm mentioning this whole TV series in the context of what is broadly I'm seeing this as a historical piece, as it were. It's not just this case of, obviously, arguably, people might be saying, well, this is like a modern drama. This is a drama because she's still alive, isn't it? But no, this is in that sense a historical piece, because also it throws into sharp focus that, yes, there may be a conversation at the moment in the UK where lots of people, frankly globally, lots of people would prefer William, just to jump straight to William, as it were. But the fact of the matter is, we're talking about a 1,000-year monarchy. We're talking about something which is older than certainly than in imperial Rome, as it were. This thing has been around longer than, and this structure, our society has been in that sense shaped
and is adapted and changed almost sometimes even from generation to generation. They've only been the Windsors since the First World War. They were the Saxe-Coburg-Gothas before that, and then before that the house, it was that, the Hanoverians. There's all this historical baggage there, but at the same time there's been a constant need actually to adapt and change and update.
But also there's that struggle, and this is what I was sort of trying to highlight, was that there's this sort of tension between 1,000 years worth of tradition and the fact that actually every single person who comes into that position of monarch, of the sovereign or whatever, is having to find out what it means to be that person now, whenever now is.
Exactly.
And so I think it's mentioned in the series, precedents set by previous monarchs, and how I think one of them comes up in terms of how to handle ill-advised marriages and all this kind of thing. So and so the first did this, and so on the one hand it's kind of cute, I guess, in that sense, to sort of go to have that ability, but on the other hand it really highlights that actually in a very real sense, to skip a monarch, to just go boop over Charles, would be a tremendous decision. It would be a massive thing to do. And I think people, again, in that sense, I'm not a particularly strong monarchist. I think there's lots of room for talking about republicanism, but I think also as well at the same time, obviously being an archaeologist and a historian, I very much appreciate societal structure. I appreciate the purpose of things. And so while we live in a world where you can have fame, you can have pop idol and all that kind of thing, Britain's Got Talent, something like the monarchy isn't something where the monarch doesn't have to be popular, I suppose is what I'm saying. The monarch is who comes next, and if that person isn't popular, then tough, you don't get to just vote them out, as it were. Certainly not in the structure that we live in today.
Although you could argue that, in the case of the Queen's uncle Edward VIII, the establishment, the government has ways of getting rid of monarchs.
Ways and means. We have ways.
I'm very much with you on that. I'm not. I wouldn't go to the wall for the continuance of the monarchy, but at the same time, I think as a political and societal construct, and an expression of certainly a version of Britishness and so on. The way that it's constantly evolved and changed and adapted willingly or not.
Yeah.
Again, we're coming up for the 20th anniversary of the death of Diana in August, Princess Diana in August, which that week people were talking seriously about, can monarchy survive? Are we heading for a republic? Because of the way that the establishment around the current Queen responded to that particular crisis. Obviously, they weathered it, changed, and adapted.
And yet, I think, obviously, we'll move on to your TV pick in just a moment. But I think what fascinates me there is, okay, there were these conversations that happen surrounding these media events that occur, but it's the way in which actually just how completely integrated the monarchy is into British society. I mean, one of the things that's going to be a fascinating exercise to observe when, they said when the Queen dies, is actually going to be the process of actually swapping out all of the insignia. I mean, that's just one element, but the fact that everywhere you look in Britain, post boxes, money, ID cards, I can't even begin to cover it all. But there's going to be a tremendous, essentially, brand change, the likes of which no one alive really has properly seen. It's going to be a fascinating time.
It will be, and I think the only thing we can say about it, whatever happens, it's going to be different.
Yeah,
what we're used to.
Anyway, we're not like the Queen or not. We're not wishing her dead.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Is that treason? I'm sorry, I can't quite decide. So, what's your TV pick of the month then?
It's one to watch out for. The people who've been following the podcast will know that I have a particular relish for a series called Hunting Hitler that was done on the History Channel. That went to 2 series. Now, it looks as though Bob Baer, who's the ex-CIA spook who was fronting Hunting Hitler, has finally given up on trying to find Hitler in Argentina, and instead he's tracking Oswald. The series is called JFK Declassified, Tracking Oswald. It's by Cargo 7 Productions, who are the people who made Hunting Hitler. It has the same fingerprints all over it, down to the millions of declassified documents that are going to blow the whole story wide open. And I suspect what we're going to see, I may be wrong, but I think if they had some ground-shattering new revelations, we'd have heard about them by now. I suspect it's going to be a very expensive rehash of what people have been saying about Oswald on the Kennedy assassination for the last 50 years now plus, and complete with cheesy reconstructions. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah. So do you think we're going to see the reconstruction of like a line coming down to a car and then back and to the left?
It's they seem to have ditched most of the back the sort of the support acts, shall we say? That were in Hunting Hitler. There's an LAPD police lieutenant, also retired LAPD police lieutenant, who's acting as Bob Baer's sidekick on this.
Is he going to be like a munitions expert who can?
Yes, I would imagine. Yeah, exactly. There'll be endless forensic reconstructions and ballistics and all the rest of it. So the only thing I'm surprised at, they haven't called it Hunting Oswald, and they're not suggesting that he's actually. The Dallas PD faked his death. He's living in a retirement condo in Florida, but and voted Trump in the election. But
yeah. But it's one of those things where actually, I mean, as fascinating as a conspiracy theory can be, if there was a document about to be declassified that essentially said that was the case, it would surely be reclassified as above top secret, burn it, put it in a of course they're not, it's not going to be, but it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
I would have thought so. It reminds me of the terrific joke. I can't remember who coined it first. It was something but basically that the arrival of Donald Trump as president is final proof that there are no aliens. Because the first thing he would have done when going into the White House, he'd have said, "Okay, show me the stuff on Roswell," and then he would have started tweeting about it.
Yeah. He would have told us how JFK was an inside job. He would have,
Yeah,
he did selfies at Area 51, and absolutely. Here are the little grey. Yes, actually, you're right. Such a wonderful positive of the Trump administration is how leaky it is in that sense.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you know, I haven't thought about that, but yeah, you're right. No way he could shut up. He'd be like, "Look what I know. Look what I found." Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, well, on that surprising, positive bombshell, and so a quirk of reality and fate, I suppose we should bring this month's podcast to an end. It's been, I won't lie, just between you and I, the people at home, and also Andy. It's been a bit of a hassle, this one, hasn't it? This month we've had some technical problems and issues, but we've got through it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what next month brings. Not least, a new government.
Or a rehash of the old one. We'll see, won't we?
Oh, yeah. See, I was trying to end on positivity. You bring us the rehash, honestly. Anyway, as ever, guys. Until next time, do take care. Bye bye.